Today I'm joined by Felicitas Morhart, a Professor of Marketing at HEC Lausanne, the University of Lausanne, for the second podcast in our Reimagining Sustainability series. In 2020, Professor Morhart founded the Swiss Centre for Luxury Research, a Swiss think tank based at the University of Lausanne. The centre unites luxury researchers and experts from top academic institutions in Switzerland and acts as a hub for thought leadership on the future of luxury management. She also co-hosts the Luxury On Air podcast series, which explores trends, innovations, and personalities defining and redefining the luxury industry. Felicitas, welcome and thank you for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's jump in. The concept of luxury has evolved to include immaterial forms of luxury such as connoisseurship, quality time, and well-being. What is your definition of luxury, and how can it contribute to more sustainable consumption?
Yeah, you start with a pretty difficult question already. I think there's as many definitions of luxury as there are people. And I think it also evolves over a lifetime. At the stage where I'm now, I will not say that this will always be the same definition, but for now, it is for me something that is rare in my life. And that can be anything. And that is a very relative term, right? Because for some people, some things are more rare than for others. But for me, it is something which is rare and which embodies something of highest value. And highest value, again, is not something which is only financial, but it could be of highest value in terms of beauty or excellence or harmony. So for me, it's really something that makes me bloom, something that elevates me, or something that edifies me. So I would even go to the point where I would say luxury is a feeling of being a more beautiful person. And that already includes ideas of sustainable consumption or maybe conscious consumption. It has a lot to do with you allow yourself a luxury, which is something which is not mainstream, which is not daily life, but it is something which makes your life very special. And by definition, that is something which you don't regularly consume.
And how are leading consumer brands redefining luxury through sustainable practices? And what examples are there of this positive impact?
Well, I mean, this is very vast and you could include many, many things. I think the most obvious where most brands had started is to engage in philanthropy, actually activities which are not theirs, but they would give money to other organizations to do something good. Let me not talk about that too much because I think that is not sustainable practice by an organization itself. So I think what is happening quite on a large scale right now in the luxury industry is product focused and also consumption focused. So maybe let me start with the consumption focus. So I think there are more and more companies who educate their consumers how to gracefully consume luxury. And I would refer by this to the term of luxury competence. So building up the appreciation and the savoir consommer, I would say, of luxury. So to cherish the legacy, to get interested in the patrimony, into how things are being made. Like, for example, Hermès, I think it was last year, where they had a big exhibition for about 8 days, I think, which was called Hermès in the Making, where they were bringing the savoir-faire closer to the public. So even people who have never bought anything from Hermès or who will maybe never be able to buy something from them, they could dive into the meticulous process of how these creations are being made. Or look at Van Cleef and Arpels, one of the jewelry makers from the Richemont group. They are supporting L'École, School of Jewelry Arts. So that is really an institution that offers education and and courses for anybody. You can just sign up and you can learn something about jewelry. And that is something which I find very elegant, let's say so, to educate people to cherish the work that goes into a luxury creation. It's not just something that you buy for €1 on Temu. So that is the consumption-based side. And then, of course, there is also a lot of trial and error, let's say, when it comes to new materials. So some brands for a long time already have tried to introduce new materials that bring alternatives to maybe say a little bit less politically correct materials like exotic leathers or conflict stones. So for example, vegan leather, right? That is a staple of some brands already. Like Stella McCartney was very early to bring in also other fibers that really give alternatives to leather and to more polluting materials. Or Yves de Genève, the watchmaker here from this area, who is creating from the scratch sustainable materials. So it's sustainability by design already in the product from the beginning. Or Breitling, the watchmaker, they are first mover in committing 100% to the use of lab-grown diamonds. So this is on the product side where there's quite a lot of things happening. And then maybe around the product, when we talk about packaging, this is a big thing in the luxury industry too. I mean, just think about the crazy packaging for a perfume or the packaging for a watch. Like, this is not necessary, but of course it comes with the whole ritual, the opulent ritual of luxury. And so here, many companies actually try to get their head around how can we reduce packaging, how can we make it more environmentally sustainable, but at the same time, not detract from the magic when you open the package. So maybe you have come across these unboxing videos on social media. So this is a big deal, like the opening of your purchase. So in luxury, it is a very difficult fine line or balance to find between not cutting out the dream, but at the same time, do it in a way which is not polluting. Voila. So these are the things that I'm seeing right now where actually luxury brands do experiment, where they do make advances, but also where they struggle.
And when it comes to being green in a materialistic world, you co-authored a research paper where you offer the solution to consume better but less. Luxury consumption, perhaps, but not mindless luxury consumption. Please tell us more, and what are the implications of your findings?
Oh, I would say we are really in a dilemma because we are in a materialistic world, at least here in our Western and very developed era. And there is very interesting research which goes back to the beginning of the 90s already by a researcher called Shalom Schwartz. And he has a theory which actually has been shown to be very, very valid, that we have a value or an ordering of values in our minds where some value packages contradict other value packages. And one of these contradictions is being somebody who strives for materialistic values and for consumption and for, and status. And on the other hand, being a green consumer and pursuing values like benevolence and sustainability and universalism. So these are two values which are per se opposing each other in our minds. And what we have found in our own research is that when people try to pursue these two value sets at the same time. So let's say you're driving with your gas guzzling SUV to the farmer's market. We find that people feel somehow fake when they do it, or they have an issue of bringing that together in their personality because you feel like you're trying to combine two activities which represent two opposing value systems. So you kind of feel like, I don't feel quite right here because I should rather be either materialist or green, but just calling something sustainable luxury or just being a green materialist, this is something which doesn't feel great for people. So my conclusion from this kind of research is we can keep people being materialistic, meaning that they can buy stuff, but they should buy the more sustainable alternative. And I think this is what many companies are doing. However, I personally think this is still not resolving our problem because it's still stuff that people accumulate at home. I'm a big fan of simplicity. So really to cutting down mindless consumption, cutting down novelty seeking, that you need, new clothes every 2 weeks or every month, or that you need 48 pairs of shoes. Like, why? It's really not necessary. But rather spend all that money on stuff that you would send back through Zalando anyway, or you would give it away anyway because you're sick of it so fast, or because you just don't like it anymore. Rather spend that money on maybe 4 pairs of shoes, but these are really nice pairs of shoes from really good brands. And then they can be expensive. And the more expensive something is, the more we cherish it and the more we take care of it. So I think luxury is actually a pretty good answer to overconsumption, because it forces us to cut down in the quantity of our items that we consume and rather go for quality.
You hosted an online event with the CEO of Cartier International on the concept of deconsumption. Can you please explain to us, what do you mean by deconsumption, and what are the advantages of this approach for both consumers and the brands?
I mean, as I just mentioned, that very much reflects the idea of deconsumption, that you consume less but higher quality. But that does not only mean like buying new, but also taking more care of what you have bought, like letting things being repaired, like bring them back to the store, bring them back to the atelier and have them repaired or upgraded. You can also, and this is working pretty nicely, also go more into recycled consumption. So Vestiaire Collectif is a very good example where you can buy secondhand, and it's really nice stuff that you find there from very exciting brands. Or you can also engage into shared consumption. I have just recently heard about a very interesting concept in the US, which is called Newly, where you have an allowance of, I think, 6 items per month that you can choose, like whatever brand it is that they have on their website. You pay a monthly fee, and then you can either decide whether you keep it if a piece really fits you super well, or if you want to give it back and then get something new. But this is a shared pool of items. So there are pieces that are going to be rented by somebody else maybe in the next month. And I love this idea because it is always the same stock, or more or less the same stock of items for a longer period, which is consumed in a shared manner and very consciously consumed, because if you don't like it, after wearing it a couple of times, you can still give it back. Or you really fall in love, and then it's fine if you keep it and buy it. So there are new ways, let's say, of recycle, repair, and share that all fall into this category of deconsumption, not piling up stuff in your own closet. And what is the positive effects? Well, I would say on the psychology of people, I feel like there is really a big burden of having all the clutter at home. So decluttering your home has a very liberating effect. I think we all know that when we start decluttering our wallets, for example, then of course it has a positive effect on the environment, because people probably will understand that there are ways to consume more consciously, not only in fashion, but maybe also in other areas of their lives. And then in total, I mean, the whole business model is, of course, way more environmentally friendly than, just producing stuff that goes to the landfill directly. Because here, the company has a very clear idea of which items are bestsellers, which items work well, which items don't work well. So here you can also adjust the offer, because you get really clear data on how many items are being sent back, how much do people want to change, how many items are finally bought when we talk about this shared model. So I think there is a lot of good effects for the business models to streamline them more according to sustainability goals. Of course, for companies, on the first look, maybe less exciting because most of them pursue growth, and deconsumption is, of course, not supporting the growth idea. But I would say luxury especially should not have pure growth as a goal in the first place anyway. Because when you become too big and too popular, you're losing your exclusivity.
Authenticity, sustainability, and provenance are, of course, more significant than ever in luxury. Tell us a bit about digital passports and why is this initiative in the process of becoming mandatory?
Well, so digital passports are a digital record of a product, right? So a product's life cycle, where it has been produced, to which hands it went, until the disposal. So it is actually like a passport for us human beings. It is a record that shows where did this product travel, where did it come from, and what are the materials that go into it. So this is opening a door to the consumer or to any stakeholder, because anyone can actually scan a QR code, or you have NFC chips that you as a consumer can read. And with that, you are giving transparency to any stakeholder about the provenance, about the authenticity. It is something that secures that you're not buying a counterfeit. It is something that helps in sustainability advances, because it helps companies to identify and to reduce risks which are related to sustainability. For example, if I know, or I can be sure that, for example, the stone or the gold has been coming from a mine which is well audited or which is in good hands, whilst when there is no information, well, that could raise questions about where, does this item come from. Regulatory compliance, well, that plays a big role, because it is mandatory to have digital passports. I think by 2027, they pushed it a little bit into the future, but that is to make companies accountable for where do they source from. So that is something which gives more transparency and gives more security also about that you're really paying the right price for the real thing, and not just something which has been assembled in a ghost shift somewhere in a third world country. So it is something that advances technologically the enforcement of sustainability behaviors of companies, but it also gives more trust to consumers to know that they are consuming the real and a safe product, because we must not forget that it's not only about hurting maybe a luxury brand if there is a counterfeit, for example. There is also really important health risks involved if you are consuming a product which is actually not the real one. So these are some aspects where DPPs can help to advance the sustainability agenda.
If we can please conclude with the important issue of the traceability of raw materials, such as responsibly sourced gold and diamonds. What can you share about progress being made to improve sustainable practices here?
Well, there is quite some discussion in the first place, like what is responsible gold, for example, or what are responsible diamonds? There is a lot of intricate problems involved, because if you have gold which has been melted through different pieces that have been, collected from different sources, you cannot prove from the beginning, like, where did this gold come from? So there are still problems which are related to, misdoings in the supply chain. But what counts in sustainability is to make things better. So even if there are some problems where I say, well, you cannot really trace this, for example, this gold bar back to the many different sources where it might have been composed of, it is at least an advancement to show we care. And we, at least where we have control over the supply chain, we try to do our best. And there is a lot of initiatives also here in Switzerland. For example, there is the Swiss Better Gold initiative that really tries to advance the agenda of having more control over gold coming from sources which are audited, where there is more responsibility towards both the environment and the communities which are living from gold mining, for example. Then there is also from the finance industry really a move towards we do not trade or make money only with gold per se, but we also start paying a premium or demanding a premium from customers to make sure that the gold that they have is actually responsibly sourced gold, and that in the supply chain there are institutions and there are actors that actually do care for the environment and do care for the people involved. There are interesting innovations right now. Just 2 days ago, I have heard about a company at ETH Zurich who has invented so-called lab-grown gold. So it is an alternative to natural gold. So they're trying even to synthesize gold, just as we have with lab-grown diamonds, to actually exclude problems related to social unfairness when it comes to those original problems in the mining industry. However, you never know where these factories one day will also be or what the conditions are. But at least with lab grown, you have way more control of where those products come from. And then there's, of course, a big advancement in traceability technologies, right? The technology can really help to reinforce the traceability and all the advances around DPP that we just discussed. You know, we could also just say, okay, why don't we just stop this whole thing? Like, why do we still keep mining gold? Why do we still keep mining diamonds? Don't we have enough already? And wouldn't be the most sustainable thing to just stop this? And like always, the answer is not straightforward, because it is a very complex problem where you have many, many communities, many livelihoods depending on this kind of business. And so whenever you come and say, okay, let's just stop it, that means you have an impact on quite many people who are living from that. Right? So it is better if mining is supervised and, of course, audited, and if there is companies and initiatives to help those people to work in better conditions. But we need to understand that these people need some sort of an income. And if we don't give them an alternative to how they can make their money, we have to somehow keep this industry going, but in a cleaner and in a more responsible way.
Felicitas, thank you so much for such an eye-opening conversation on this interesting topic.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for having me, and it's been really thought-provoking questions.